what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be looking at solving equations, and the lesson objective for today's lesson is to solve two-step equations. Now before we start on solving two-step equations, what we need to do is we need to make sure we understand the notation. So for example, the question says 3x plus 2 equals 23. We need to know what 3x means. So basically 3x means 3 times x. So if I write here 3x, that just means 3 times by the x up there. So you've got an indivisible times sign there. So what we need to do now is we need to make sure we look at some of the inverse operations. So for example, if I say to you, what is the inverse of add? The inverse is a subtraction. What's the inverse of a subtraction? It's an add. Likewise, what's the inverse operation for times? We know it's going to be divide, and the inverse for divide is going to be times. So these are the sort of things that we need to remember before we start this topic. So one of the things we need to make sure we remember is when you've got a question like 3x plus 2 equals 23, we need to make sure we have letters on one side and numbers on the other side. So for example, 3 and x we can leave together. That means 3 times x. Because the 3 is attached with the x for the time being, we can leave that there. What we need to do now is we need to make sure we get rid of the 2. And if it's a positive 2, like we said earlier on, that positive becomes a negative. So we need to subtract 2 on one side, and you must subtract 2 on the other side as well. Remember, we need to have a balance up here. So what I'll do now, the new line should look something like this. 3x up there, and then the minus 2 and adding 2 cancels that, and then you've got 23 take away 2 is 21. Now 3x, like we said earlier on, it's a 3 times x. 3x equals 21. So what we need to do, right, is we need to get rid of the times, and we need to divide by 3 on both sides, divide by 3 and divide by 3, and on this side here, 3 divided by 3 cancels out, so you've got x on its own from here, and then you got 21 divided by 3 equals 7. So my answer is x equals 7. What I need to do up here now is make sure I substitute. Substitute basically means replacing. So just to make sure we've got the correct answer, the question says, what is 3x plus 2 equals 23. I've just written the question out there, and all I'm going to do now is substitute. So I'm going to replace the x. So I've got 3 here, replace the x with the 7, and then I've got plus 2 equals 21. I'm just going to expand this out. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 2 equals 23, and that is my answer that I needed up there. So hopefully you should have understood that. I'm just going to go through another example with you up here. So we need to make sure we understand the second one up here. So this time it says here 2y minus 7 equals 23. Like we said previously, we need to know the inverse operation. This time it's a minus 7. The 2y can stay where it is because that's with the letter. We need to get rid of the minus 7 up there. And the inverse operation of minus is a plus. So I'm going to add 7 onto both sides. Add 7 and add 7 up there. Now my question looks like this now. So I've got 2y, the minus 7 and the plus 7, they cancel out, and then I've got equals 10 up there. So I've got 2y equals 10. 2y basically means 2 times y. And the inverse operation of times is divide. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to divide it by 2 because it's a 2y. So divide by 2 and divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 cancels out, and I've got a y on its own here, equals 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that is my final answer. Like I did in my previous example, what I want to do is I want to make sure I can substitute the y back into the equation. So the equation stated 2y minus 7 equals 3. Now what I want to do now is I want to replace the y with the 5. So I've got 2 here, replace the y with the 5. So it's going to be with the brackets, close the brackets, minus 7 equals 3. If this is true, it's actually worked out for us. So 2 times 5 is 10, minus 7 equals 3. So I know that has worked out. So that's the mark for us up here. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to be looking at a mini whiteboard activity, and what I want you to do is look at the question and press pause, and then we'll go through the answers. So if I say this to you, the question is, alright, this one's already done for us, 8f plus 3 equals 43. We'll just do this one really quickly up here. So it's going to be a minus 3 here. So you've got here 8f and that cancels out there, equals 43. So you divide it by 8 and you divide it by 8 up there, and you should have f equals 5 up there. Can we attempt the next question ourselves up, please, and press pause. Your answer should have been D equals 2. Just one more question up there. And can you press pause now, please? And your answer should have been H equals 4. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at something that's going to be slightly different up here. A similar equation, but it's slightly different. What you should have noticed is this time it says minus 2y, take away 7 equals 3. And what we need to do is exactly what we did previously. We need to have the letters on one side and the numbers on one side. This time the minus 2 and y are together, so what we're going to do is we're going to leave the minus 2y together and we're going to get rid of the 7. It's a minus 7, so what you must do is you must do the inverse of operation of minus, which is a positive. So you should have positive 7 on this side here, and don't forget you must have positive 7 on the other side, just to make sure everything balances. So on the left hand side, what you should have in the new line is minus 2y, minus 7, positive 7 cancels out, equals 10. Now, previously, when we were doing questions like this, if it said 2y, you divided it by 2. But this time, you have to be very careful because it's a minus 2y. So what you need to do is we need to have the y on its own. So if you divide by minus 2 this time, and you divide the other side by minus 2. And minus 2 divided by minus 2 just cancels out up here, and you should just have the y on its own, one y on its own. And 10 divided by minus 2 should give you minus 5. Please make sure you do write minus 5, not 5. And your answer is y equals minus 5. Like we did previously, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be putting the question back up there, the equation back up here, minus 2y minus 7 equals 3. And we need to be substituting up here. So you've got minus 2 up here, and then replace the y with the minus 5. Open the brackets and close it. Minus 3 equals, minus 7 equals 3. Now, what you have to do up here now is you need to expand the bracket. So minus 2 times minus 5 is going to be a positive 10. Take away 7 equals 3. So we know that is the correct answer. It's just slightly more trickier because you have got negative numbers. Now, what we've got is a task up here. What you need to do is you need to answer the questions up here and make sure you take a snapshot of this and upload this onto the computer, please. Right on class charts, make sure it's uploaded. Before you do that, there's a question up here. What I want you to do is I want you to attempt this question up there and press pause. And your answer should have been a equals minus 4. Just one more before we get some questions. So answer the question and press pause now, please. Your answer should have been j equals minus 5. Now, what I want you to do now is attempt these questions, take a snapshot of these, and then upload these back onto class charts. And thank you for watching.